again by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets up center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Lilia able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal.
Three of the fans want one. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
I always love when this starts on video and it's just my face is just blown up across both screens while the video loads in.
I'm just glad it's not my face. Nobody needs that.
No. I'll figure out a way to make it.
Jesus. So we haven't talked since before the draft.
Yeah. Wow.
So I want to start. I know it's insane. So I want to start this off with a very silly story where I don't know if I mentioned it on here, and I apologize if I did. But Chad had an extra ticket to the first round on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Asked me to go with him. Was able to go. Absolutely ruled. It was at LA Live. We got to see all the prospects, all the first round kids, like the way
all the awkward interviews after they were drafted.
The interviews that didn't happen, the interviews that couldn't, like it was great. Like that box thing wasn't a good idea, but I understand how you talk yourself into it.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was such a disaster. Like it did not work at all.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple of kids that could that had a little bit enough sense of themselves to be able to make it work. Weirdly enough, Matthew Schaefer was like that. But I think he was so caught up in the emotions of the moment, obviously missing his mom who passed away from cancer, all that stuff. I don't think the interview fazed him, right? It was so not a thing he was worried about. He just had this moment. He went first overall. He's thinking about his mom. He's thinking about his family, all this stuff. So, getting asked stupid questions and being forced into a half-ass interview with the Islanders is just nothing, right? There's just no part of that. But speaking of the Islanders, there was a couple sitting ahead of us, probably about 4 or 5 rows ahead of us, and they were Islanders fans. And they were trying to take pictures in front of the stage, kind of just with the stage in the background.
Yeah.
And I leaned over and I was like, "Hey, do you want me to take your picture for you?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, that would be great." And so I'm taking their picture and I start to tell them, "Congratulations on James Higgins." And they're like, "Huh?" And I was like, "You guys pulled off the trade. You used the Montreal picks and traded up, and you guys are going to get, basically, you guys traded up to, I think 4 or 5 or something.
To Utah at 4, yeah.
Yeah, something like that is what I had heard. Right? It comes through the old SB Nation Slack that I'm in. Mm-hmm. So I am assuming the people who are sharing it have some level of vetted it. And so it just drops in. And I was just it literally hit when I was looking at all the trophies, because they have all the trophies on one of the concourse, just in this tiny little area.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just looking at all these trophies. So I'm half paying attention. Literally the fucking Conn Smythe is right there, right? I get to see that it says Jaguar on it. So I am not paying attention to how accurate all that stuff is. I'm just oh, that's crazy. Cut to later. I tell this couple, you're going to have the best first round in the entire world because you guys won the first overall pick in the lottery and you just traded Noah Dobson for your next center that you need. This kid from Long Island I think I just hit the mic. That's probably going to sound terrible. But, literally you guys solved the draft in 6 picks.
Yeah.
You guys are done. We got number 1 defenseman, number 1 center. We are good to go. And then it slowly dawned on me as I'm waiting for the draft to like start and get underway and all this stuff, that the source wasn't a great source and that it was a speculative drop into the chat where it was just like, this is out there. Wonder if this is real. But I didn't see any of that.
So I Frank Saravalli.
Bro, dude, I was like, no, it was like some person, just like a person. Whatever. But like I'm like sinking into my chair slower and slower. The pick comes up and misses, right? And they don't make the trade for whatever the pick was. I think it was like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And the dude in the couple turns around and finds me. And I look at him and I'm just like, I'm so sorry. There's still room. Like you guys still got a chance. And he was so cool. Him and his partner. I don't know if they were like married, girlfriend, whatever. But like they were very cool about like it. They didn't come and like find me and beat the shit out of me for lying to them. I watched him tell other Islanders fans that this is a thing he heard. And I'm just like, I could not feel worse right now. To perfectly contrast that with Chad's evening, the person I was with, me and him having completely different experiences, he sees Roger McQueen walk by us before the draft even starts, go over to meet some fans who have like Lightning McQueen signs. He comes back and Chad's just like, hey man, can I get a picture? He's like, yeah. And then we draft him and he posts it on the thing. So I'm lying to people from New York and Chad is getting pictures with the future, first line center for the Anaheim Ducks, essentially.
Chad's just living in the future, getting
pictures
ahead of time with the guy we were drafting.
And I'm fucking lying to this poor couple who like sprung to come to the draft because the Islanders season sucked so much. They're like, fuck that. All the money we didn't spend on games, we're going to fly to LA. Oh,
yeah, dude, they probably thought you were some insider too. They're like, yeah, this guy's got this.
But I just like told them, I was like, this is what I heard. Like, this is like, congratulations. Like, I'm so happy. Like, because they were so nice. I was so happy for them. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I get to be happy for you because you guys seem very sweet. And no, I'm just out here fucking lying to people. Just absolute monster shit.
I love it. I mean, I don't love that happened too, but I also do love that happened.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You are.
Part of me does love.
Of all the people that could happen to, I am absolutely high on the list of like lying to random fans the first round of the draft. No, that's funny.
I just know how much that bothered you when you found that it wasn't true.
Dude, I was literally like, do I go and like offer to buy them a drink just as like a sorry? But I was
no. What you have to do is you have to somehow then broker the James Hagen's trade. That's the only way you can make it right.
Yeah, that's exactly out here being a power broker.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta go down to the Bruins. So you gotta fly to Boston, go to their war room, and figure out what needs to be done.
God damn it, Cam Neely. Can you grow up and make this trade, please? You guys need this trade. They're like, actually, what we need is a first-line center. Shut up. That's not the point. And then, to their credit, the Islanders had a great draft and were able to get Deshaun Aitchison and
how
little
insane
baby
is that?
Eklund.
Like, they don't trade up, and you're like, well, the Dobson trade looks kind of crap now because they didn't get. I don't
think so.
Well, like, yeah, like it certainly isn't. But like the thought was like it was rumored the whole since the trade got happened. Like they did this obviously to move Dobson, but to get pieces, and they're. I think the first thing that came out after, I think Friedman was like, yeah, they're going to use these pieces to trade up to get Higgins. Like, that's the goal. Then 100%. Higgins goes to Boston at 7. You're like, oh, man, like, it's still a good trade because they still get 2 picks, like, very close together in the top half of the draft. But it's 16, not 17. Higgins.
They got the last pick of the lottery and the first pick of the playoff teams.
And then only 2 guys fell of guys that were expected to go in the top 15. And both go to the Islanders at 16 and 17, which is just wild. Like Eklund, I didn't expect to make past probably 12, and Aitchison, I don't think you would have expected him to make it past 13 or 14 with the lack of defensemen that had gone earlier, and then for them both to fall there and you walk out of the draft. Like honestly, I think you're in a better position walking out with Schaefer, Aitchison, and Eklund than Schaefer and Hagens. Like getting those three guys, like it's tough. It's close, but like the fact that you can now have that argument, you're like, okay, like I think it's better than, Eklund and the guy who like Reshny or Carbono or anything, like to walk out with Eklund and Aitchison.
Sure.
People had both of them in their top 10. It's certainly a pretty good consolation prize of missing out on Hagens.
Yeah, like I think the Dobson trade for me was an A for both teams. I thought Montreal did the single, like,
huge for Montreal.
The only other thing that they could have done is use those same 2 picks to go get a number 2 center to play behind. Or in a perfect world, I guess, you trade him for somebody to put ahead of Suzuki.
Yeah.
And Suzuki is now the, most like overqualified matchup center in the league.
Yeah.
And whatever. But like they went out and they got Dobson, who was a bona fide number 1 for them. He solves a lot of issues for them. He buys time for Lane Hudson to continue to develop. He buys time for Ryan Bacher to continue to develop. He's still young. They got him for less than $10 million a year on the contract they ended up giving him. Like, it is an A trade. Trading the 2 picks for Hagens makes it an A+ trade because you go basically in the span of a week. You lose, actually the span of a day, you lose your number 1 defenseman, but you
get a number 1
next
defenseman
number
back.
1 defenseman, and you get your next number 1 center. I know Boston couldn't afford it, but like if you're them, would you trade that pick for Matt Barzal and the 17th pick?
I think you can. I think Boston just can't look past a center at that point. So like I think if you're Boston,
but that's what I'm saying. If you get if you get Matt, or if you go fucking if they got Bo Horvat,
something like that. I think I think Barzal in another first, like 10 picks later, you probably have to say, like we're gonna get that because even if Hagens, turns out better than Barzal, you're still getting Barzal now, and the Bruins have a small window where they still need to succeed with Pasternak there. That makes them better, and you could shoehorn Barzal into center. He's played center, and just try and make that work. And then you get the 17 pick, which you could either take somebody at 17. Now they would have got Aitchison at that point, which I'm sure they would have loved to be able to do that. Or you could have moved it if your guy wasn't there, right? So, I think you probably have to. But like you said, you look at the situation in Boston and the ability to draft a guy who plays for Boston and get a center in this organization, something they desperately need. It's like as much as New York and the Islanders need a center and need a guy who's going to be a number 1 center for the future, Boston needs it just as bad. So for them to get that and a guy that I'm sure they've watched endless amounts of times this year, but at the beginning of the year, they had probably just assumed there was no shot because people thought he was going to go in the top 3, and they assumed the Bruins would have made the playoffs. For them to finish where they did and for him to fall there, it's like a dream scenario, I think, for them, right? So,
I don't think there's.
They had both their guys probably on the board, right? Like O'Brien. If Hagens had gone earlier, and let's say he went to that 5 and Martin was still there, I'm sure they would have taken O'Brien. Like the Bruins had, the dream scenario for them available at 7 to have Hagens or O'Brien fall to them, and obviously Hagens is the guy they're going to take over O'Brien, but they had both if they wanted to make a choice there. So I couldn't have seen them moving off that pick.
No, for sure. I think the way it played out makes the most sense for everybody involved. I just think, if you are like dream casting it, it is Boston trading back.
Yep.
Because they're just like, we can't afford cap space. So what we need is as many basically we need as many good young players as we can get.
Yep.
And as good as James Hagan is, and as much as he fits for us, like being able to get 2 high-end guys like that.
Yeah.
But like when you make that trade, you're not gonna know that it's Eklund and Aitchison who are waiting for you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like maybe you're like, oh, it's fucking what's the kid from Tri-City?
No, Jackson Smith. Yeah.
Jackson. You're like hoping it's like Jackson Smith and Justin Carbonell.
Yep.
Justin, right?
Yep. Yeah, Justin Carbonell. Yeah.
But like that's who you're kind of maybe hoping you can get is those 2 guys. Where you're like, well, this is a guy who has like legitimate upside potentially as a top pair defender, and a guy who could be the next leading goal scorer on our team. So I don't know. It was interesting. It was an interesting draft. We have show notes, and the first thing on our show notes is the Ducks draft Roger McQueen, 10th overall. Right shot center, top 5 pick if it's not for his back shit issues. High skill, high upside pick. He's really fucking tall, man.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He's huge.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have the most massive front line in the entire league.
Yeah. I mean, even again at center depth for one with Carlson, McTavish, and McQueen if McQueen plays center. But then you add in Seneca and Cutter's not exactly small either, right? Like it is going to be a bunch of guys sitting either on average around 6'2", 6'3", and then a few guys like McQueen and Seneca are 6'4", 6'5", and McQueen could be 6'6" at this point, right?
McQueen is at this point he's probably closer to 6'6".
Yeah. And then when you look at him in the frame he has too, like he's gonna play probably 215 too. Like he's gonna play heavy, I think. So like Seneca's gonna be wiry. I think he's just always gonna be wiry. This the way his frame is. But McQueen looks like he's gonna be a Tage Thompson type player in terms of what weight he's gonna skate at, right? So
Tage Thompson is going to look like a basketball player.
Yeah.
Or McQueen is probably going to look like a basketball. I think Seneca probably will too. I think that they will both be thinner but muscular guys, and I just think the height difference, the extra, because I do think McQueen ends up at like 6'7".
Yeah, like Tage is 6'6",
really
220. So I could see
which
McQueen.
Is, you want to know what's insane?
What?
You know who is 6'1", 220? McTavish.
Yeah. What? I mean, that makes McTavish looks like, and not a negative, but he looks like he's 220. Like he's a stocky guy.
Leo is what, 6'3", 210?
Is he over 200 now? I guess he has to.
He's got to be over 200.
Yep, 6'3", 203. Last reported,
okay.
So,
he'll be 210 next season.
And Seneca right now, he's 6'4", which is wild because he was like 5'11" a few years ago. 6'4", 195 in the OHL. So yeah.
Seneca's going to probably end up around 6'5", 6. Yeah, probably about 6'5", probably 210, 215.
Yeah, Cutter's 6'2", 201. So it's
dude.
it's gonna be something.
It's gonna be nuts. We've still got Pedersen, who I think is like 6'1".
Yeah.
Gaucher is like 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
Brian Paling, who we have now, is I think 6'1", 6'2". Chris Kreider, I think, is like 6'3".
Yeah, Minchkov's tall on the blue line. Solberg's not tall, but he's not small. I guess he's heavy as well. Like the Chris Kreider for the next couple of years, right? Like
Jacob Trouba.
Your small guys are what, Terry and Granlund,
and
Colangelo isn't small, but he's not small, but he's stocky. He's like McTavish, right? Like I think Colangelo's actually like 6'2", but 6'1", 6'2", but he's like 220, 225.
He's so thick. Yeah.
So it's Olin, Zellweger, Mikael Granlund, Troy Terry, Alex Killorn. That's one of the small guys on the team. That's it. So
we got Frank. Frank's the smallest guy on the team.
Fair, yeah.
Nestorenko, I think, is like 6'2".
Nestorenko's big, yeah.
You got Ross the Boss Johnston at 6'5".
Calangelo's 6'2", 211. Yeah, it's a heavy line.
Dude, it's gonna be an insane.
It's something. And they're not your traditional big guys, like old school guys. There's a lot of skill, right? Obviously, so like even like just going back to McQueen, if everything checks out, like he's the biggest boomer bust in this draft because of the missed time in his draft season and the type of injury that he had.
Mm-hmm.
But the potential is there for him to be, top 3 player and challenging Schaefer and Higgins at the start of the year as a number 1 overall pick. And it just didn't piece it together for him with the injuries, and he came back and looked good, but it's hard to come back after not playing and be a dominant force. So like this next season for him is going to be huge because he needs to come out and be more than a point per game player. He's got to come out and be, top 5 player, especially at his size, right? Like with a lot of big guys, we see from Nick Ritchie when in his draft year, like there was you're playing and you're producing because you're so much bigger than these guys. But there's McQueen has to come out and just be a dominant force because he's got the skill to go with that. Like obviously he's going to create space for himself because there's some guys he's playing against that are like 5'8", 5'9", 18 years old. And he's 6'5", over 200 pounds already. But he's got the skill and everything to separate himself from that. So next year's super important for him to show that he is that player. But, man, he is – it's an exciting pick. Like someone we all kind of wanted, right? We wanted them to swing. We wanted them to take a risk in a sense to get a player that could be an elite player, the next guy that we're looking for. And when you look at who was left at the table at that point, the real only option was to go for Roger McQueen, right? Like there wasn't really any other option with Mertka and O'Brien and guys like that already off the board.
I think they made the best possible pick they could make.
Mm-hmm.
Because exactly like you said, this was a play for potential. This was a play for, in 6 years, this could be the best player in this draft. Like, I am not being funny. His skill level is that high that there is a world in which he is the best player in his draft. The question is going to be, is he able to hang at the NHL level as the league gets faster, right? It seems like he's a good skater, like a strong skater, but it's still going to be, like it took Tage Thompson a few years to figure out how to play at his size, even with his skill in this league. And then the other thing is obviously just the health, and like to what extent does his health allow him to be a meaningful hockey player? And, given everything we've seen with Caden Lindstrom this year, there's plenty of things to be like scared about. It's the human back, which I think is one of the best examples of how much we still don't know. You know what I mean? Like you hurt your back and they're like, you should lay on your back for a little while and use heat, but don't use heat. Also, you probably need to work on your core. And they're just like, okay, well, here's some Advil and a day off. Hope it gets better.
Caden Lindstrom, by the way, like off topic, but I was just looking, I went to his Elite Prospects page. The amount of players from the CHL committing to the NCAA, and specifically like Michigan State, is going to have an unbelievable team. He's committed to Michigan State next year. Mm-hmm. Like they're going to have an unbelievable team. And the thing with him too, like that seemed to be the main reference point, and because it's recency bias and the fact that he had the injury, people didn't think it was going to be that bad, and then he missed the entire season. Like that was like the real only reference point. A lot of teams scared off of that because Lindstrom went so high in the draft and then missed an entire season. But there's been like there's no long-term proof that Lindstrom's going to really be impacted by that. His recovery time just took longer and he had to miss the entire year. He could come out next year and be one of the best players in the NCAA. And then we're all looking at this like, damn, like, okay, maybe we should put this much stock into it. And I understand why they did. And it's certainly like you have to be concerned about it as a team when you look at what happened with Lindstrom. But we are not far enough down the road, I think, for that level of concern to say, oh, well, McQueen his career could be over already. Like that was some of the type of the reaction it seemed like we were getting from this, is that like this kid's either going to be really good or the back injury is going to screw him over. And I don't think we're at that point to say that, when the only reference point we're using as an example is Lindstrom, who's 19 and missed one season from a longer recovery.
No, but it's scary. And I think, I think there's an underlying thing that makes the pick worrisome. Again, like if you're just kind of looking for ways in which this pick could go wrong, right? And the kind of cost benefit analysis, like value prop part of it. There is the part of it to me that, like, in a perfect world, this is the last time we're picking this high for a while.
Yeah.
And so to use that pick on a player who you aren't 100% sure is going to play in the NHL or be able to play in the NHL is terrifying. And when you do have Caden Lindstrom just missing a whole season, the problem with missing a whole season is all it does is create room for questions. It just creates a vacuum that people can worry inside of.
Yep.
And so, yeah, you're 100% right that it is way too early to write off Caden Lindstrom's career. It is by far a million years too early to use that as some kind of like projective idea of how to handle the draft, how to handle back injuries and moving play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, Roger McQueen is this big, tall, high-skill kid with back issues. Caden Lindstrom, big, tall, powerful, high-skill kid with a back issue. And you're just like, he hasn't even played yet. We haven't seen anything out of him.
I honestly, I would have been more.
What are we doing?
I would have been more comfortable with the narrative being this kid missed the majority of the season. He played like 17 games. We just haven't seen enough of his draft year development. And then the injury is part of it, but we just didn't see enough of him. Like I'm fine with that being the excuse, but it felt like that became secondary to the type of injury that he got. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that was I think the recency bias with Caden Lindstrom. And certainly it's concerning. I do like the Ducks taking the swing at this. I think I'd be more concerned if there were other names available at 10. But when you look at everybody that went after that, like you really just had to put McQueen up with, I guess, like Smith and Bear and Eklund and Aitchison in terms of like consensus who were the top players available at 10. If you have to pick between those guys, like there's no guarantee for me looking at those guys that any of them are going to be major impact players at the NHL level, or like more of a guarantee than McQueen. If you take the injury out of it,
right,
the pure upside swing of what this guy could become, you just have to take that at this point where the Ducks have enough pieces, right? They don't need more, minimal pieces to add to this. They need a big swing on a guy who could potentially be not just a top line player, but an elite player in this league. And the only guy available really from like 3 down was McQueen of who could be that. Like Schaefer, Misa, Frundell, and I guess maybe Hagens are guys you could really put your hat on and say could be elite. I think from there, you probably you say McQueen and Martone are the guys that you look at and say are the next best shot at being the elite players from this draft. And then McQueen, I would just separate him from that because of just the package of the type of player that he is with the skill that he's able to have at the size that he is. It's just a different level of something that you're not traditionally used to seeing.
Yeah, I think McQueen is ahead of Frundell in terms of potential upside, like by a lot. Like Hagens, I think what you're looking for, like, I think what you're hoping you get with Hagens is like 90%, 85%, 90% of Macklin Celebrini, where you're just getting a good player who just does things well.
Or like a Jack Hughes light, something like that.
Sure, I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Schaefer, obviously, what you're looking at is like, oh, this guy's going to be the number one defenseman on our team for 15 years. Misa, again, like, I don't know for sure, but, like, my understanding of, like, Misa is, like, that's a dude who could push for the scoring title.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he seems like a potential, like, 40-40 type guy. Like, he's right in the mix there of kind of being able to do it all. Play center, play wing, score goals, be a producer, play driver. Like, he just kind of does everything. For me, I think the biggest challenge in terms of potential to McQueen of who could be the best player from this draft just based on potential, I think is him. I like Schaefer. I really, really do. I think he's going to be a really good defenseman. But when we look at, I think he could be like a Miro Heiskanen, right? Very, very good defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
But, a 10 to 15 range league wide, which is still very good.
I'm going to argue with you that I would put Miro Heiskanen probably in my top 8.
Okay, fair. Yeah. But like
around
that range.
I have a hard time thinking I can come up with 9 defensemen that I would rather have than Miro Heiskanen.
And you're probably right. You are probably right with that. But
I think that is exactly the comparison to make. I do think if you're them, that what you're hoping for is you're like, oh, this guy could be Miro Heiskanen for us.
Which at one, great, perfect. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I think, and it's what you should do if you're the Islanders at that point. But Misa, for me, like if you're getting a guy who should get 40-40 but could score 50, could push 100 points, like we're talking the elite players in the game being able to do that. There's not many guys who can do that, right? So for me, I'd probably put him as the guy who's the highest potential, just because there's a little bit more certainty that he's able to hit that with some of the question marks around McQueen. But pure upside, like McQueen is right there with those guys and being the guy that could certainly be the best player from this draft. So you got to walk away happy with that, because I walked in saying, I just want the Ducks, and we said this, last year and the year before, to take a swing on a guy, be able to be in a position to take a swing on that type of guy, the guy that some people believe is the best player in this draft, but so for whatever reason he's available at, in this case, 10 or 6, 7, 8, 9, wherever the Ducks are drafting. You just kind of hope that they'd be in that position, if it's not at first overall, to be able to get a player that has that potential and has, whatever slim chance it may be, to be able to become that type of player, because that's what they need. They need a hit on something like that, because they've got all the pieces in place. They need another elite player, and unfortunately, whether he would have become that or not, but it just wasn't given the opportunity. Trevor Zegras was not that guy for Anaheim at this point. He probably could have become that. I think we both believe that he can become that type of player, but it's not going to be the case with Anaheim. So now they need another guy to be able to step in and do that. They've got Carlson, they've got McTavish, they've got Seneca on the way, they've got Cutter Gauthier, they've got Trey Terry still there. Like, they need that kind of last elite piece, and could be McQueen.
Yeah, for sure. I wanna just pivot straight into this, because I think you can argue either way that the McQueen pick and the Mikael Granlund signing are in sync or are counteractive decisions. I think there is a version where you can make the argument that says, we signed Mikael Granlund to a 3-year deal. We think he is going to, over the next 3 years, help this team be more competitive on a nightly basis, and is going to help us continue to make this push where we think we should be a wild card team at the minimum this year. And we are operating from a place of, this is what we want. And we now know that through his bad luck with the injury, we were able to get a guy at 10 in Roger McQueen that might take a couple years to get here, but when he hits, has an opportunity to completely change the roster just walking through the door. Or, I think you can argue, they drafted a guy who is not going to be ready for 5 years. Like, who is not going to be an impact player for about 5 years. And yet, they're going out and signing Mikael Granlund, who is a complimentary piece for a big money deal.
Mm-hmm.
And those two moves are arguing with each other. Which one do you think it is? Because I don't think either of us like the Mikael Granlund signing. I think the best way I can explain how much we didn't like the Mikael Granlund signing is we signed a guy you and I didn't want us to sign, and then we ended up pivoting into, well, I sure hope we sign this other guy we didn't want to sign. Otherwise, the first signing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think they're independent of each other in the sense that, like, the Ducks need to do something this offseason. I think Verbeek knows that they need to do something. They need to make some addition. They lost Zegras. This team needs to make steps towards the playoffs. Again, I don't think Mikael Granlund is that guy. But you know, you weren't going to win the Eller situation. You know, you didn't win the Marner situation. There was only so many names left. They had to go out and get somebody, and that somebody that they were able to convince to come here and be a good option was Mikael Granlund. And, like, I don't love the signing. It's a great depth piece, certainly not for the price they paid, but he had a great season between Dallas and San Jose. So, you know, that's the going rate for guys like that in a season where there wasn't a ton of top free agents available. They're just, you know, that's how much you're going to have to pay for a guy like that. But yeah, man, like the thing that sticks out, like that annoyed me most about this is the comments from from Verbeek in what he thought he was getting in Mikael Granlund, and it just concerns me a little bit, like calling him a great, you know, kind of two-way player who you know, does well defensively, is a penalty killer, which barely played on the penalty kill last year. His defensive numbers weren't great. Then he referenced him being over 55% or something on the draws in Dallas. And then I looked at the numbers because I remembered him exclusively almost playing on the wing at all times in Dallas. And he had taken like 55 faceoffs across his entire season with Dallas, which worked out like 1.5 draws per game. And you're lauding this guy for being 55% draws and taking 1.5 faceoffs per game in a situation that he was probably moved into the faceoff dot because somebody got moved out for going too early or whatever the situation may be. Like, those things were the more concerning to me, is like, do you really know what player you signed here and you're getting? Because the quotes we're describing this guy is completely opposite of what the player you're getting is, which is what you kind of wrote down here. A utility forward, an undersized playmaker that can contribute to your middle six offense and maybe help on the power play, but it's certainly not, I think, what Verbeek was describing that he was getting. So, and then you're paying this guy 3x7, which you're expecting him then to be, you know, not on the borderline, like a top 6 contributor and a guy who's going to put up 60, 65, maybe 70 points in the season. That's great, but where is he going to do that? Like, the question you have is, like, what's his role going to be? Like, where is he going to play? Who is he going to play with to be able to do that, to justify paying him $7 million over 3 years? Like, you can't play him as the third line center because then he's not going to do that. And if you're going to play him on the wing, then, you know, Troy Terry's right wing number 1, so then you're going to play him on the right wing on line 2, and then, well, okay, Seneca's not coming up this year then if you're doing that. And who you're going to play with him to maximize his potential, but then also not sacrifice the defensive ability of that line. Like, it just, you know, you can play him with Leo or you're going to play him with McTavish. Like, it's such a weird fit. Like, I don't know where to put him. And that's concerning when you're paying this guy $7 million.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. I was trying to think about the lines, and like maybe the decision that you make is you're going to play him with Kreider and McTavish, and he's going to be your second line right wing. Okay, I don't overly love that. You know, that officially means your first line is Cutter, Carlson, and Terry, and your third line is more than likely.
Toronto, Strome, Killorn.
Thank you very much. Couldn't think of it. Left my brain. And like again, like those are fine enough lines, but those are not lines of a team that I think should make the playoffs unless you're telling me we get a huge jump from Leo and Mason.
And Cutter.
Because Granlund, Kreider. Well, no. Because here's the thing. Cutter scored 20 goals last year. I think there's a reasonable expectation that he should get to about 28-30 this year.
Mm-hmm.
If he is only ever a 30-35 guy, right? 30 goals, 35 assists.
Mm-hmm.
If that's all he ever is, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Great. That as a winger is not enough to elevate a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need Mason and Leo to super pop in order for this team to have a real chance. Because again, the thing about the Granlund signing is this team is full of potential, and then a bunch of guys who are older. I like the old guys we have, with the exception of Granlund. If we traded Ryan Strome tomorrow, I would not be sad about it, but I have no problem with Ryan Strome being on this team next season and the season after that. I have no issue with that. I like Killorn. I think he's a good player. I don't think he should be on the top line, and I'm glad that this seems to help move him farther down the lineup. But I think that should have been the case. I don't think you have to bring in Granlund and move him down. I like Chris Kreider. Chris Kreider's going to go to the front of the net. He's going to score goals on the power play. He's going to address the simple. But, like, unless your two dudes at the top in the center are those dudes, then you basically need a Lane Hudson season from one of Minchikov and Zellweger.
Yep.
You need one of them to be a 60-point defenseman right away. I think Minchikov can be that. I am very high on him. But like there isn't any one player who is young, who is at a level that I'm like, that is their baseline now. That fits the role that they should be. Right? Dylan Larkin hit a point where you're like, you kind of want him to be a little bit better than this, but if he never gets better than this, he's still good enough. Right? I think you can say the same thing about like Nick Suzuki, where you're just like, maybe if you want, you can say there's an extra 10 to 15 points of offense that you would love to see out of him. But if Nick Suzuki is only ever as good as Nick Suzuki is right now, that is a perfectly good first-line center. That is a good player you are happy to have every day of the week. Leo isn't that yet. McTavish isn't that yet. Minchikov isn't that yet. Zellweger isn't that. The closest you get is Dostal. And Dostal will now be playing under his third coach at the NHL level. I have questions about how this all fits together in the way that Pat Verbeek wants it to fit together. And if he thinks McTavish is going to take this big leap that is necessary, why is he still unsigned? Why are you not just fucking paying him?
Yeah, I mean, are we not at the point now that it seems like to win it all in this league, you need to have at least one player capable of putting up over 100 points. Like, it feels like that's where we're at, no?
Yeah.
Like Tampa Bay.
You need either a 100-point player or a 40-goal scorer.
Yeah, well, yeah, you go back. Like Florida, Barkov, Tkachuk.
Barkov is not a 100-point player.
He's kind of close, but he's a 90-point player. He's getting close to 100.
It's Tkachuk and Reinhart.
Yeah,
are the
you're 40-goal, 100-point player for sure. Vegas, when they won, you had Eichel as being that, or was he? Yes, he was there.
You've got Eichel, you've got Marchessault, you've got Mark Stone.
They're the ones you could maybe argue were a little bit outside of but like I still think even though Eichel was about a point per game that season, like he has the potential to do that. Colorado, obviously McKinnon, Tampa Bay, obviously Kucherov. The only like outlier over the last maybe decade it's St. Louis that gets out of that. Like, you know, even Washington, you've got Ovi, Pittsburgh, you've got Sid and Malkin, Chicago. You had Kane, who would be a 100-point player on that roster. Like, it's, you know, and then I guess the other outliers, and you're getting too far back here to really justify that because there weren't many 100-point players back in, you know, when we were going farther back here. It's like LA, right? As an example of maybe not having that.
LA and St. Louis, by the way.
Yeah, but I don't even know. I can't. Like,
No.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm going to say. They won on the back of goaltending. They were a good and deep team that was well coached with great goaltending in the playoffs. I do not think either of those players are as good as their reputations. I will not sit here and say they weren't both money in the years that they won the cup.
Yep. No, that's fair. I think you could argue that case for Vegas in a sense as well with the goaltending that they received during the playoffs. If you don't want to say that Eichel is a 100-point player and they didn't have that, like a 40-goal scorer, 100-point player, I think you could potentially say Vegas is that. But then we're talking about, okay, basically one team every 3 or 4 years is an outlier. So if you want to win consistently, and they all won one time, which Florida won twice, Tampa won twice, Pittsburgh won twice. Like, you want to be a consistent team that can win it back to back or be able to compete. You need one of those guys. And we're not at a point that we can say Leo Carlsson is going to be that guy or Mason McTavish is going to be that guy or Roger McQueen or Beckett Seneca. But those are the 4 hopes that you have of those guys being to be that guy. And I think that's why we're so behind trying to go after a guy like Jason Robinson, because you know he can be that guy. And you just look at what it takes to succeed in this league and needing a player like that. Like, I would say and I'm not fully confident in it, but I guess the best shot you have at someone being that guy right now is Leo Carlsson. But I can't confidently say that I think he's a 100-point player. It's funny, like the only guy, I think the guy would have given the most confidence of just having that pure raw point scoring potential would have been Trevor Zegras, as being a guy that could put up 100 points or figure it out to be able to do that. More confident, and it, like, again, I know to some people it might sound insane, but like more confident than any other player, Gauthier, Carlson, McTavish, Seneca, McQueen, of being able to just put it all together at some point to be that 100-point player. I would have put my money on Trevor Zegras to be that guy.
Yeah, and which means that now it's Seneca and it's McQueen, and then there is an outside shot that Cutter is a consistent top 7 or 8 in the Rocket, right?
Yeah. Sorry, Then you say Cutter is your outside chance of the 40 to 50 goal scorer. I can't even, like, in good. I can't put McTavish in this conversation because I just think there's absolutely no way he's either a consistent 40-goal scorer or a 100-point player. So
he's a 70. Like, I think if McTavish hits, it's 75 points.
He's like a Ryan O'Reilly.
Great.
Yeah. But it's Cutter. It's Cutter on being a consistent 40-goal scorer, which is it's a tough ask. I think he's got the potential, but it's not set in stone by any means. It's Leo Carlsson being a 100-point player at some point, which is very difficult to say, and it just doesn't happen that often. to have a center who plays the way he does to be 100-point player. Like, again, we're talking about Barkov not being a 100-point player. Like, if he turns into Barkov, that's great. But if Barkov's not a 100-point player, then what are we talking about, right? Like, then is it Seneca? Is Seneca? We don't know yet. Is McQueen? We don't know yet. So that's when you're saying, okay, well, you traded away the guy that at least I believe had the best shot of doing that. And the only other shot you have right now of acquiring a sure bet of a guy who can be 100-point players is Jason Robinson, which, of course, we're still waiting for the outcome on what's going to happen with that situation.
The only other option here is, well, I guess there's two options in terms of like what this team looks like going forward in terms of difference makers. One, you have the Lukas Dostal is actually the best player on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, maybe. Like, he is a definitive year in, year out, top 6, top 7 goalie. And that alone is worth the second round of the playoffs almost every year.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm open to that. The other thing is Pavel Mintyukov or Roland Zellweger become Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
Erik Karlsson hit 70 points 4 times in his career. One of the best defensemen of the last 20 years. He hit 70 points 4 times. Let me double check. 5. 5.
It does feel like then you're almost like relying on Pat Verbeek and Joel Quenneville basically being able to combine to just like shift the paradigm of what it means to be a successful team in the NHL consistently. It's that you're just going to build this roster that fits so perfectly together.
I don't think that's true. Here's the thing. I don't think that's true. I think this roster, with the pieces it has, is very capable of being a consistently successful top 2 or 3 in the division, second round of the playoffs team.
For sure. Yeah, I think they do.
The issue is, as it stands right now, the best chance of turning this team into a legitimate contender is Joel Quenneville being the oldest coach in the league. That's not great.
Yeah.
That's not great. I don't love that.
Yeah. It's funny how we didn't want to talk Granlund so much. We went down this rabbit hole of what what it means for this team to be successful, because we just did not want to talk about Granlund. Man, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, summing it all up, I think the Granlund signing is fine. It is like I'm not a fan of it. I think it was too much money. But I think this is a team that needed to do something. You can't come out of this offseason signing nobody. And it just so happens that it was Granlund. Like, there's certainly a few other players I would have wished it was, but there's certainly worse players that it could have been. So I can't say it's the worst thing in the world. It just, you, like we've said a few times here, you just kind of struggle to see the fit. And I guess that will come with, the first handful of games of this season, and we see where he's playing and how that works, and see how everything comes together. There's certainly a world that it works out great. That's why I can't say I hate it wholeheartedly, because there is certainly a world out there that Mikael Granlund is a 60 to 70 point player in a successful Ducks team at the end of this season. He certainly has that offensive ability to do that. Is that a long shot? Sure, but I'm not saying it's impossible. So I can't completely write off the signing until we see just games. We got to see how it all comes together.
I want to read this. So at Bleacher Report, Adam Gretz wrote an article being like I think it was the most like questionable signings of free agency. And Mikael Granlund was one of them. And this is what he said. 5 biggest overpays from free agency. Is he going to get the minutes and the role in Anaheim to produce the way he did for the Sharks? And if he doesn't, is he going to do enough away from the puck? He's a playmaker, first and foremost, and at his best when he's setting people up. He doesn't have a strong defensive presence and isn't really any sort of physical force. He has to produce points to have value. And in a situation where he might get second-line ice time instead of the first-line variety, Anaheim isn't going to get what it's paying for here.
Mm-hmm. I do want to point out the splits between San Jose and Dallas last year to just kind of further prove that point. So in San Jose, 45 points, 15 goals in 52 games. He played almost 21 minutes a night, 20 minutes and 51 seconds on average across 52 games. That's by far, I think, the most or second most he's averaged in his career, barring San Jose the season before that, where he played 20:58. The only other time he played over 20 minutes a game was Nashville in 2021, 2022, where he put up 64 points in 80 games. And that was his best season in, I think, 4 or 5 years at that point. So then he goes to Dallas and has 21 points in 31 games because he only plays about 17 minutes and 5 seconds a game. So the production dips off. He becomes about a 50 to 55 point player across an entire season in Dallas, playing about 17 minutes a night. So I think that quote that you mentioned is so accurate, because in what world is he going to get 20 to 21 minutes a night for this Ducks team? It's just not. We can't even figure out where to fit him. I mean, if he plays with Leo and Cutter every night, maybe. And if they gel well, then maybe he's getting that. But we just talked about how this team has 3 capable lines that they can roll. And they really don't have a nailed down number 1 power play unit. They like to roll basically 2 units for a minute each. So he's not going to get, 16, 17 minutes a night at 5-on-5 on the first line and 3 minutes of power play time. It's just not going to happen. He's probably going to get 17 or 18 minutes a night, which what it looks like on a successful team for him is about 50 to 55, maybe 60 points.
Yeah, I don't know how he makes the first power play unit.
Yeah, I mean, if you're saying it's definitely Kreider, Cutter, Leo, and then one of McTavish or Terry. Like you just can't say he makes that first unit. It's impossible.
And by the way, what you just said is bringing up 4 forwards. Jackson Lacombe, Olin Zellweger, Pavel Minchikov, and Tristan Luneau all have a reasonable argument to be made that they should be getting minutes on the power play.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you've
He's
got
going to be a
5
second power
forwards.
play guy.
You've got 5 forwards and 4 defensemen who could play. So there's an extra spot there. But he's I don't see him being on the top unit. I just can't. If everything's going right, he shouldn't be. That's the thing, right? Like if everything's going well with this team, he shouldn't be.
How do you only have 5 forwards?
I'm sorry. Like I've nailed down outside of Granlund. If you add Granlund, it's 6. And again, that's excluding Frank.
Who tell me the name. I
Leo,
want to know the names.
Leo, Cutter, Kreider, Gauthier, Carlson, Kreider, McTavish, Terry, and then Granlund would be your 6.
So Vetrano and Strome don't
miss out. And I think
Strome has to because he's a right shot.
Yeah, I think the argument you make is if you want to, the trigger man or the goal scorer on each unit, one unit has Kreider, one unit has Cutter. You've got, but again, like if Kreider's not the trigger man, then he's the net front guy. So then he's a net front guy on one, and McTavish is the net front guy on another. So then Vetrano maybe makes his way in. If Cutter's the trigger man on power play 1, then Vetrano's the trigger man on power play 2. Yeah, Terry's the playmaker on one unit. Carlson's the playmaker on the other. Like, where does Granlund find his fit in there? Like, what's his role on the power play? Like, again, we're talking about what's his role on 5-on-5. What's his role on the power play? Like, I don't see him having a role on unit 1. If everything's going well, he should not be on power play 1. And that's concerning because if he's not on power play 1 and he's not on the top line, then he's not getting enough minutes to do what he did in San Jose, and that's what you're paying him for, is to do what he did in San Jose. If you're paying for him to do what he did in Dallas, then you shouldn't be paying him $7 million.
Right. I asked the Dallas writer, and she straight up said, like, he played in the top 6. He was either on the first or the second line.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, he was either playing with Hintz and Rantanen, or
I can look
Duchesne and Seguin. So, like, who are the two players that we're using to replicate those, right? Like I like Leo, I like Cutter, I like Mason. They're not those guys yet.
So the most consistent line that Granlund played on last year was in Dallas. He spent 20% of his 5-on-5 minutes with Mason Marchment and Matt Duchesne. And then he played with Duchesne, Granlund, and Robertson for only 33 minutes. And then the rest of most of his ice time at 5-on-5 even strength last year was Sharks lines. Was Zetterlund and Eklund was his most used line there. Then he played with Eklund and Toffoli. Then he played with Zetterlund and Will Smith. And at some point he played with Toffoli and Celebrini. So he was kind of all over the place with San Jose. But the majority of his ice time last year was with Duchesne and Marchment. And I guess that's Strome and Vetrano, right? Like,
I mean, Matt Duchesne put up almost 90 points last year.
Did he?
Yeah, dude. He put up like 86 points last year, I think.
Yeah, 82 and 82, 30 and 52.
Like,
I mean, listen, his best shot is playing with Cutter and Leo. I think that's his best shot because there's a chance there. I think you could see Terry. I think Terry McTavish and Kreider works well together.
Yeah, I don't want Leo, or I don't want Lee. I personally do not want Troy Terry on Leo's line. I think Troy Terry needs to be with Mason McTavish no matter what.
Yeah, I think he has to, and I think Cutter, with the way they played, Cutter has to play with Leo, and if Terry has to play with McTavish, then Kreider has to play on the left. Then Kreider has to play with McTavish and Terry. So the last spot left is right wing line 1, and if you want Granlund to work and you want that to succeed, you want to give it the best chance to succeed because you're paying a lot of money, and Granlund has to be right wing line 1. And I do think there is a fit with Karlsson and Cutter for Granlund to be a bit more of the pure playmaker on that line, and then allow Leo to do a little bit of both, and then Cutter to be the goal scorer. Like I can see and I can understand the fit.
Here's my question to that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you just rather save $7 million and just play fucking Ryan Strome there?
I mean, yeah. Like, but you need the team. I would have rather just kept Trevor Zegras and played Trevor Zegras there.
No. Yes,
Yeah.
I am trying very hard to specifically not talk about that part of it because you're 100% right.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but then you've got a fourth line of Paling, Vetrano, Killorn, which I don't love. I love it a little bit more. Yeah, sorry, third line of Paling, Vetrano, and Killorn, and then you're kind of shoehorning Ryan Strome into the top 6, where I'd prefer him as the third line center. Like I think your chances of making the playoffs or being a better team are certainly better in this case on having Granlund versus not having Granlund. I don't think it makes the Ducks significantly a better team, but I think when you're able to have Strome and Vetrano play on the third line with, say, Killorn or Colangelo, whoever you want, and being able to have Granlund, a guy who's played in the top 6 recently, be able to do that and see if that works, I think that gives you a little bit more flexibility to just do better. It's not the ideal situation. I would have loved to just get like a bona fide top 6 forward. Like, we talked ourselves into Nikolai Ehlers, even though we didn't really want him, but that certainly would have been a guy you would say, okay, for sure he's playing right wing line one with Carlson and Cutter, we wouldn't be talking about this, right? Going out and trading for Jason Robinson, you know where he's going to play. There's no question of his role with this team. So that's like the frustrating thing about this. But at the end of the day, the Ducks are a better team in theory with Granlund on the team than without him on the team.
I'm not convinced that's true. Like, I get that on paper. Like, I just...
And I'm not even saying it's by much.
I guess. But, like, I guess my question is are they, as a team, are they better enough that you wouldn't rather just fucking play Sam Colangelo there? And just be like,
yeah,
"Hi, Sam Colangelo, you're going to play with Leo Carlson and Cutter Gauthier, and we're going to see if you can just do stuff at a high end, just go do stuff at a high enough rate that you can generate useful opportunities on the forecheck for these two guys."
Yeah.
Again,
I think you can still the thing that I kind of have to defend with the signing is you can still do all that if you have to. But if you don't sign anybody and that doesn't work, you're left there standing and saying, well, what else? We didn't even try and do something to just have a safeguard in case this didn't work out. Because there's a lot of other options I'd rather try. I'd rather try Beckett Seneca and just see if he's ready to go and play him on line one and see if that goes. I would love to see what Colangelo could do playing with Leo Carlson and Carter Gauthier and see if that works. Like, there's a lot of other options that we can try just to see if they work. But if they
I'd rather
don't,
fucking get Jack Roslovic.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, listen, I
get that if you want to say, like, the consistency for Jack Roslovic is not there to a point that, you know.
I think either way we'd be looking at this and saying it's a potential failure with Jack Roslovic.
At least Jack Roslovic is a right shot shooter.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing about this with Granlund that is just fucking baffling. This team doesn't need playmakers. Like passers.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. He's not a playmaker in the he's making things happen sense. Mm-hmm. He is a playmaker in the he is a pass first assist guy, which is not the same thing, right? Like,
yeah.
And if you're just going to go get another dude, I would rather have someone who's going to shoot the fucking puck all the time.
Yeah, my only defense is if you want, and again, it's not really much of a defense. If you just want to hang your hat on and say we brought in a top six forward, as much as it you could say it's a stretch or whatever, like Mikael Granlund was a top six forward last year. I know we already talked about the opportunities and how much minutes he got and why that was the case.
But he was a fucking top six forward for the Sharks who were worse than we were.
I know. And in any other situation, I would sit back and I would be like, man, this, like, I don't love the signing. Like, I just have to try and defend it. But like, it's going out and spending $7 million over 3 years for the Ducks right now is not going to hurt them versus going out and spending like league minimum or whatever it would be to get Jack Roslovic in. At least there's some recent success from Granlund in terms of point production that you can point to and say maybe he could do this. Like, there's a bit more of a chance, I would say, that Granlund can succeed on the top line than the Jack Roslovic. And then, like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And yeah, you know, you're not out anything really, that it's not hurting you cap wise to be able to get other things done. And you have other options that you can try that we already talked about, like Colangelo and Seneca, that you can still try. And if the worst case scenario is Seneca's so good that he already is your right wing number one, then Mikael Granlund's on your third line playing with Vetrano and Strome. And then it is what it is. And you paid this guy $7 million to be a third line player. But other things worked out that he didn't need to be the first line player. And that's still, I think, a win, all things considered, for the Ducks, that something else worked out that he didn't need to be that guy, but at least you brought some insurance that if Seneca wasn't ready and if Colangelo couldn't be that guy, that you bought somebody and you brought somebody in that has a bit more potential to be a top line guy than a Jack Roslovich. And like, it's the only way I can kind of defend it, because I still, again, the signing doesn't make sense to me in a lot of ways, other than just you being able to publicly say as a GM and you being Pat Verbeek that I brought in a guy who has been recently a top 6 forward. I can say that I brought in a top 6 forward to this team. And if it doesn't work out, then it is what it is. We've got other guys in the pipeline. He can still be a good depth piece for this team, albeit an overpaid one, but it's not hurting us in any way in the cap, right? So.
No, you're right. I guess I am just profoundly uninspired by the idea that what the Ducks should be doing is signing a guy who has a relatively high floor.
Yeah, you for me, the thing I'll always go back to this is you traded away a young pass first playmaking center/winger because you felt like he didn't fit with your system because of whatever reason. The explanation is that he just wasn't in the type of player that you that fits the type of team you're trying to build, and you bring in an older version of that type of player instead and say, yeah, no, this guy fits. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a great point. Trevor Zegras not Mikael Granlund in the very simplest sense of a pass first guy who can play center or wing and can, at the very, in Zegras' case, you would normally say at the minimum get you 60 points, but in both of their cases, like 60 points is okay for them, right? Like that's where we would be at with either of them right now. Like, it's, so I always come back to, like, if the reason, like, clearly that's the public reason you're putting out there of why you got rid of Trevor Zegras. The real reason is, like, it just wasn't working on a relationship level between Verbeek and Zegras anymore after, I guess, going through arbitration and all the things that have happened over the last couple of years. It just had to, a situation that had to be resolved by moving him out the door. But it's just like, you had that already. You traded it for nothing to bring in an older version of that. Like, that is my big gripe with this whole thing, is I would be much more comfortable with them doing nothing and just having Trevor Zegras being on a line with Gauthier and Carlson than having Mikael Granlund being on a line with them. You know what I mean? Like, it's just...
Or Trevor Zegras playing with Chris Kreider and Mason McTavish.
Yeah. Anything, right? Like, it's just...
Yeah, but...
that will always be my concern with this.
About our ex.
Yeah, it will always be my concern with this. And again, my major gripe with the whole situation was the comments from Verbeek about what type of player he thought he was getting with Mikael Granlund just, like, was not accurate.
Yeah, dude,
like,
he talked like he was getting a pit bull.
Like, it's just not accurate. Like, he's not a defensively solid player. And he talked about how he was a good two-way player and it was solid defensively. He's not that. Talked about how he's good on the penalty kill, which he barely played on last year. He talked about he was good on draws in Dallas, and he took 1.5 draws a game at most. Like, his career average in the faceoff was like 46%, which is like what do you think you're getting here? Like, did you look at the last 30 games and not the rest of this guy's career? Like,
yeah, man, I don't
understand.
I do not like it, Sam. I do not like signing that man.
Yeah, but the one we do like signing is Lukas Dostal. That one got done. 5 years, $6.5 million. Signed for the remainder of his 20s. UFA at the end of this deal, 9 days after turning 30 is what you wrote down here. I love that. So, I mean, listen, like, good deal for both parties. It locks him down at a very good rate for the Ducks over the next 5 years, and it sets him up for a good final payday, likely an 8-year deal, take him from 30 to 38 if he does well. So I like it for both sides. I love that we're finally firmly into Lukas Dostal season because John Gibson's traded to. We didn't add that in here, did we? Was that not how did that, or did we talk about that last show? I don't think we talked about John Gibson getting traded last show, so that has to get out.
We didn't talk about him getting traded to Detroit.
Did we? I don't think we did. Because did that not
That's
happen?
crazy.
When did that happen? Did that happen at the draft? Did it not?
Happened. No, I think it happened.
It got announced. It got announced at the draft. It got announced at the draft as a trade. It happened at the draft. So that we haven't talked about that.
Okay.
So I mean, we can talk about it here because it makes sense. But it's finally nice to go into a season. I mean, we only had Lukas Dostal for the last little bit, but to just have a fresh face and a guaranteed new starter. Because it's funny because the conversation at the beginning of last year was, can Lukas Dostal start to push for the starting job? A season later, he has it, and he's got a pretty nice contract to go along with it. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how he does now as the definitive number one. Like, there's no question anymore. Like, he is the number one. Peter Mrazek is his backup. That is it. Like, it'll be very interesting to see how he does. I think he'll do great. He was exceptional last season. One of the few shining lights for the Ducks across the whole year. I love this deal for him. Like I said, I love this deal for the team. And he's kind of one of the guys I'm most excited to watch and see how he does for this upcoming year.
Yeah, no, I'm happy for him. I'm excited for John Gibson to have a new opportunity. I think I need a Gibby Detroit jersey now. Yeah, man, I'm just fucking glad it's over. I'm just so glad the Gibson thing is over and we get to just move on now.
I feel like I've been talking about it, and we've certainly been talking about it since you joined the show, but I feel like I've been talking about John Gibson trade rumors since this show started. That was one of the talking points. Like, it's been that long. I think it's like 7-8 years we've been talking about trading John Gibson at this point.
We got the great fucking Josh Cooper quote. I'm not fucking trading John Gibson. Put that out there. Yeah. Or I'm not trading John Gibson. Put that fucking out there. Bob Murray to Josh Cooper from The Athletic. Like, it's just been a whole thing. I mean, even with Freddie, there was people who were like, are they going to keep Freddie and trade Gibby? Like, it just... And now we don't have to worry about it. And now John Gibson is Detroit's problem, and whether or not John Gibson is still the player I think he is Detroit's problem. And now I get to just sit here and be like, all right, now we get to ruin our next starting goalie.
We always, to our credit, we always seem to find one, though. We always seem to have one in the pipeline to be able to put in. There's never been a situation, at least recently, that we've had to be a Philadelphia and scramble to find a goaltender. We always seem to have the next one up that pushes the old guy out to take his job.
Every instance in which I can remember, I would say the last 15 years, that the Ducks were scrambling for a goaltender, it is because they had multiple injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, they went from Jaguar to Hiller to Freddie pretty seamlessly. Mm-hmm. There was a few kind of, ups and downs. Jonathan Bernier, Jason LaBarbera, Victor Fast.
But again, that was at times due to, like you said, injuries for John Gibson and others at the time. Freddie and John Gibson both being injured at different times. So
yeah, and just different weird things. Like it was always fine. And so, yeah, I'm excited about this contract for Lukas Dostal. I would be open to it being a little bit longer, since I don't know how many years of this 5-year deal Anaheim is going to be competitive.
Yeah.
I think if you ask Pat Verbeek, he'll say the answer to that question is 4.
And I'd say it's probably 2 or 3.
3 best case scenario?
3 being optimistic, yeah.
3 is Beckett Seneca walks in as the second coming.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to say, if Verbeek's 4, it's that Seneca walks in this year and is a 50, 60-point player and then becomes an 80, 90-point player next year. And Carlson and McTavish and Cutter Gauthier take major steps forward. And then maybe you're competing next year. Right. But yeah, 3 years seems like the optimistic goal. And then, 2 years of that deal is kind of the probably the sweet spot of what you're actually looking for if things just go right. So,
and again,
which is fine. And again, like, cap's going up. then you just sign this guy to somewhere between a 6 to 8 year deal on his next deal for more money, and it's not a problem, right? Because if we're having to sign him to a longer term deal at more money, it means he's done well and he's earned it, and it's a good position to be in that we don't have to go find another goaltender. So
logic against me.
Yeah, you got it. But like it's the only big one so far. Yeah, there's the small ones on here. Like Hellison signed 2 by 1.1, Nestorenko 2 by basically league minimum, and now we're still waiting on McTavish, and I guess McTavish is the big one. And Colangelo, you put Tim Wash on here, like that was.
He's technically an RFA. He played
you have to. You do have to put him on.
I wasn't trying to get like overly cute about it. I'm just saying, like, technically, is there a world where he pushes for fourth line center next year and Ryan Poehling plays in the third line role? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe for sure.
I think he probably spends the entire year in the AHL, except for maybe a couple of call-up stints.
Yeah,
but I think you can't say it's out of the question.
I mean, I'm more interested that Sam Colangelo is taking longer for some reason. Like I expected it to be
Colangelo
with the Nestorenko and Hellison.
What are you offering Sam Colangelo right now?
I mean, a 1 or 2 year deal at around 1 to 1.5 at the most. Like,
you're not offering him 3 years by 2.25.
I mean, no, he played 32 games and put up 10 goals and 12 points. I can't.
I think I'm doing it. I think I would offer him 3 by 2, 2.25 right now. I might honestly offer him 3 by 2.5 flat.
I think that's fine because then you're looking at just like you're paying him more, but you're getting some term at a lesser value at that point. Like I think I'm fine with that. Like if you could somehow swing like a 4 by 2.5, you're looking at that and like, yeah, okay, that's really nice.
I would do 4 by 3. I don't care. I would do 4 by 3. I would sign him to a 4 by 3 tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen signings like that where you look at it and say, how did that guy get that much money? But then you sit back and say, okay, well, it's the fact that he gave them term at such a small amount.
Yep.
Maybe that's why it's taking so long, is because they're discussing different options like that of what could possibly be the best fit. Who knows? Like I feel like the easy answer is just a 2 by 1.35, something like that, right? Like just something real easy. Give him 2 years to prove himself because he's only played like less than half a season total in his career. So I can't see him getting more than what Lundestrom got in Columbus, like a 2 by 1.3. I can't see him getting more than that, unless it's longer term.
He had more goals than.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about like experience, games played. Like
no, I feel you. I feel you for sure.
Colangelo played some time on the top line and top power play when he started kind of getting hot. So how much of that, how much is going to really be there if he's not getting those opportunities? Like all those come into question. And I'm sure that's what they're all discussing and maybe why this is taking a bit longer. And there's just, again, like you said, there's so many different options of what you could do. You could do the 1 by 1.3 or the 2 by 1.3 or something like that. You could do a 3 by 2.5 or a 4 by 3 or anything, right? Like you could, because those deals are starting to become a little bit more prevalent, especially for teams that are successful at the top of the league. They're starting to sign those guys for a little bit more for a longer term, just to kind of lock down a key role player for them at a good cap hit. So maybe that's why it's taken for a long time. The McTavish one is certainly the most interesting one because for some reason the Ducks just are at the center, I guess because he's the top RFA remaining to be signed across the league, that there's just all these rumors coming out that teams might offer sheet him, which is ridiculous because I don't remember the last time we saw offer sheet rumors coming out for a team that had the third most cap space in the league. Like,
right.
We heard barely any offer sheet rumors about guys like Evan Bouchard, where the Oilers had no money at one point. Like we didn't hear any RFA rumors about Maverick Bourque when the Stars had zero cap space to work with, but the Ducks have, I think, between $25 and $30 million in cap space. And we're talking about Mason McTavish offer sheets like they wouldn't pretty much match any offer that came in. I don't know why we're getting that, and then we're getting potential trade rumors because he's apparently not happy with the role that he thinks he's going to get, yet somehow the chances for him to have a higher role in the team have increased because Trevor Zegras is at the door. We know McTavish is going to be the second-line center. I don't know any other team that he's going to go to and get a better role than being a second-line center. So I don't understand those rumors. The whole thing has just been really weird. We've heard absolutely nothing, of course, coming from the Ducks. So I feel like a lot of this is just very slow times in the NHL and it being signing season and all the big free agents are done. And so really the only big name you can talk about because he's the only high profile or the notable RFA left is Mason McTavish. So let's just start drumming up whatever news and rumors we can and not vet our sources and just put everything out there on McTavish we can because that seems to be the point that we're at right now.
I don't understand why he doesn't have a contract. What could he possibly be asking for his next deal that would justify him not having a contract? Is like do you think he's asking for an 8x8 right now?
I think he's definitely asking for something over 7, which I think would be concerning for the Ducks to look at and want to sign and want to go for. Like cap wages has him projected at 6.7. I would have to imagine he's probably asking for something over that. So like a 7.25 or 7.5 or maybe an 8, right? Like,
yeah,
I could certainly see that being the case. I'm trying to pull up because I know there's been some recent signings of kind of similar players just to see if I can give any comparisons for potentially what his agent could be looking at. But
like I just like, what is the offer you're willing to make to him that's like, this is the max term and money I will give you?
Yeah, I mean, the only comparable I can look at is
8x8?
Gabe Velarde. Like that's the only.
Gabe Velarde just signed for what, like
7.5? 7.5.
7.5?
27 goals, 61 points.
Yeah, by the way, Mason McTavish still never hit 60 points.
Yes, I don't know what he'd be asking for, and again, I think if it's anything north of 7, I just don't think the Ducks are comfortable at this point making him the highest paid player on the team. I just don't think they're in a situation where they're comfortable with that. And maybe that's the sticking point at this point, right? Like I think there's a reason Mikael Granlund got 7 and not over 7. Like I don't think they want to pay anybody over that at this point. Unless it's like a Leo Carlson extension or pretty much that would be it, I guess, at this point. I think he might honestly be the only player, and not this season, but next season, that they'd be willing to pay over 7 at this point. I just can't see them willing to make the statement that Mason McTavish is the highest paid player on this team. So I think 7 is probably their max. And I would imagine McTavish's camp is asking for over 7 and using guys like Velarde and others as their kind of reference point to say that Mason over a longer term deal would be worth that and it'd be value and money for them. So I'd imagine that's the sticking point that they're at, but I don't honestly have no idea when and how this will get resolved and what the contract's even going to look like. Like it'll probably be north of 6 and south of 8, but where it lands in that range, I have no idea.
Like, yeah, I'm just... And again, the other part of this that makes this all difficult. Let's do this real quick. Ryan Poehling, 26 years old, will turn 27 in January. Ross Johnston, 31, turns 32 at the middle of February. Cutter Gauthier, 21 years old, will turn 22 on January 19th. Leo Carlsson, 20 years old, will turn 21 the day after Christmas. Jansen Harkins, 28 years old, when they're not in the playoffs next year. Jacob Trouba, 31, February 26th. Radko Gudas, 35, June 5th. Jackson Lacombe, 24, January 9th. Pavel Minchikov, November 25th. Olin Zellweger, 21 years old, September 10th, 2003. Once again, I just want to know, how has there not been a single contract extension signed? Not a single one of those dudes has signed an 8-year deal the year before the 8-year deal goes away. You're telling me you don't want to offer Minchikov 8x6 right now just to see what happens? Like, I get that that's a risky bet. I really do. But, like, you've made choices at every point over the last 18 months that suggests to me you think this team is close. And if that is the case, how have you not signed up your number one defenseman long term? How have you not signed up your number two defenseman long term? How is there not already ongoing conversations with Leo Carlsson? And maybe those things are happening.
Yeah, I think they are.
None of those guys signed yet?
I think there's
not
a
signing
couple
these
things.
extensions.
I think there's a couple things. I think there is a lack of confidence in knowing which of these guys you're still going to move forward with, specifically because now you have a new coach and the ability to go and evaluate that roster and get their opinion on who they think and the fit of these players is going to be and who they think is going to stick around long term. Because if you hand, again, I think Minchikov will be here long term. But if you hand him a 6x8 or a 7x8 right now, you're stuck with him. Which, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, but you know what I mean? Like right now you could still move him. And if he has a down year, you could still move him and still get significant return, I would think, because of his pedigree of where he was drafted and everything. You lock him down to a 7x6 and he has a bad year, back-to-back bad years. You're like, oh man, like this does not look good. And how do we even get out of this at this point? Right. So I think there's some reluctancy to do that at this point, while not knowing kind of how the immediate future is going to look. You've got a new coach that comes in, has got to evaluate this team and see how things go. I think we see these conversations probably start to pick up towards the end of this upcoming season, and then we start to see these guys get signed once you have an idea. And I think more than likely they all stay, but I think it's just a reluctancy to go down that road at this point when there are still some question marks on who's going to fit and who's not going to fit. But Leo Carlsson and Jackson Lacombe at this point, I think, would be the two most likely ones, and maybe Cutter Gauthier as well, that you could look at and say,
I think it's Lacombe. I think it's Lacombe.
I
am open to the argument that you want to get another 30 games out of Leo and Cutter and even Minchikov and see how they fit with Quenneville. Like I'm open to that. I get that. Bro, Jackson Lacombe was the best player on the fucking team last year. That's not Lukas Dostal. What are we doing? Just fucking sign him. You have an opportunity to really sign him to a deal that is going to age insanely well. Mm-hmm. And it's, again, you don't have to give him crazy trade protection. He's not old enough for a lot of it. Like, we don't have to do that. We don't have to make this more complicated to me. And I think that's probably my overarching takeaway from this summer and just how I feel about this team and the decisions Verbeek has made. It just feels like he's making things harder. And like, I don't know what the point of that is. Verbeek
feels very much like a linear guy in the sense he's got to do one thing at a time, which I think is maybe not the best trait for a general manager, but it feels like the focus right now is specific on obviously on the draft, and then on kind of getting a few of the guys out the door that they knew weren't a fit, a Gibson, a Zegras, and then free agency and bringing in somebody, some sort of name. So I'm sure they worked on Marner, I'm sure they worked on Ehlers, and then it turns out to be Granlund. And now it's on, okay, we got it. We had to get Dostal and McTavish. So Dostal's done. Now it's McTavish. And then from there, when that kind of clears up, I'm sure those are where those conversations start. But I do agree with you on Jackson Lacombe. Like, that is the easiest one, I think, at this point, that you could just lock him down on a good deal that works for both and just say, like, listen, he had a great year. There aren't as many question marks around him. We don't really need to see much more. Like, let's just get this one done, right? So I think he's done enough to say that he can warrant a long-term extension before his contract is up. So
Jackson
I would
Lacombe
say,
has signed a 7-year, $50 million contract. Great. Love it. Perfect. Works for me.
Yeah, and I mean, you can always do deferred trade protection, like you said. Like, a lot of contracts now have trade protection starts after 2 or 3 seasons, right? After, you get 2 years and 3 years in, and it starts. So
I don't feel good about where this team is at, despite the fact that I like a lot of what this team has. It sucks, man, and I am sure that it is a not inconsiderable amount of emotion. But this is the worst I've felt about the Pat Verbeek experience this entire time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, last year was fairly bleak too, but last year was bleak, and it was more bleak because they said that he wanted to do this, and then he just didn't do anything. Like, he wanted to bring in a top 6 forward and a right shot defenseman. They didn't do anything. And then you get into this season with that still kind of being the sentiment, and then having big names available and then not really doing anything, or just not doing anything, just getting Granlund at this point, and then losing Trevor Zegras for absolutely nothing. Like, yeah, it certainly is at this point as low as it's been under Pat Verbeek, which again is wild because there are still so many positives to look at as a team. Again, like, good seasons from some young players, other young players on the way, a good draft, all things considered. But then you just look at some of the rest of it. Like, again, like, I'll repeat this as many times as I possibly can. Like, the dropping Trevor Zegras out the door for nothing, and then bringing in a like-for-like replacement in an older version in Mikael Granlund to come in as his replacement. You could missing out on Marner and Ehlers is what it is. Like, they have their destinations of where they wanted to go to. Just being in the mix is something, but it still is a disappointment. Just not bringing in the big fish or the things that he had kind of promised, right? So we're just kind of at that low at this point.
But again, like, this is the thing I'll keep showing, because I was talking to someone about this on Blue Sky. I don't know who it was. They're not using their name. It's like Random Hockey Thought, I think, is what their display name is. You don't have to have signed this dude. And I would feel okay if they didn't sign Mikael Granlund. And they were like, look, the dude, like, it feels like he's arguing with himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the part of this that is concerning. Like, the Quenneville thing is, he fucking better be the fucking truth, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Or Pat Verbeek is not going to have this job for much longer.
It's going to be...
He's better be the fucking truth.
It's still going to be a very interesting end to August. It's funny. It shows you just how much we're grasping at straws for information when so many people came out and said, like, listen, we almost 100% should have some update on Jason Robinson before the midpoint of July. And here we are. For me now, it's the last day of July, and we've heard absolutely nothing since that point. No even hint of if a contract extension is close or if it's not going well or whatever. I still am of the belief, like, I don't think they go into the season not having either a contract signed or him moved out the door. Like, I still think they have to decide on something. I am a little bit surprised that it's come this far without any updates, but I do think we still get a resolution to that. So there is still some hope that there's more to be done, but that is it. Like, that is the last thing I think that can happen this offseason. Most teams, you don't see any big moves made in August at this point, like big name trades and guys going out the door. Their teams are pretty much set with the roster that they think they're going to go into the season with. So I think that's the last big opportunity available to the Ducks, and it's still a very slim chance that anything happens. So if not, then you go into the season with this roster. It's going to be a very nerve-wracking, interesting first few games of the season just to really see what we have this year, because I'm not sure. The roster is pretty much the same as it was last year. We've just got the whole Joel Quenneville factor and how that's going to change things, if it's going to change things at all.
Look, I think making a coaching change is going to have a positive effect.
Because it's just not Greg Cronin, so that's doesn't matter who at that point. It's just not Cronin.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'll tell you, bro, the Pacific Division is dog shit.
Yeah, that's the thing we talked about too. Like, we're gonna talk ourselves into a wild card spot.
I can talk myself into a top 3 spot.
Well, yeah, I could,
but it is entirely dependent on the 2 centers taking a step. If they take a step, I do think it'll be easy to get to a playoff spot, because I don't think the Kings are going to be good next year.
No, I have more confidence in this team finishing in a top 3 Pacific Division spot to get into the playoffs than a wild card spot.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because the Pacific Division is so bad that I feel like there will be 5 Central Division teams who get in. And I think those 2 bottom Central Division teams in the wild card spot could have better records than the team that is the 3rd place team in the Pacific Division.
I mean, look, fucking Minnesota is going through the same shit we're going through right now, where they just are kind of trying as hard as humanly possible to not sign Marco Rossi to a long-term contract. You know, I don't know what's going on with that. Like, I straight up texted you, like, are we looking at a Rossi for McTavish swap making any kind of sense, just in terms of both teams being desperate or being stubborn, or however you want to look at it? But, like, I don't think Calgary's going to be good next year.
I don't think the Canucks will be good. I think they're worse in roster-wise.
The Canucks are going to be so bad.
They had JT Miller for most of last year.
Right now,
But the Oilers and the Golden Knights should be good. The Kings, I think, got significantly worse. I think the signings they made were just not good. They've got a lot of turnover on that roster, and like some of the guys, I mean, just some of the moves they made to bring guys in, I just don't see how.
You can just say they signed Cody Ceci. You can just say out loud. It's easy. You just go, the Kings signed Cody Ceci on purpose. Yeah. I don't know why, but they did do that. Can't say they didn't.
I just don't have any confidence in any of the teams other than Edmonton and Vegas just being somewhat good. But like the Kings have a blue line of Doughty, Ceci, Dumoulin, Edmondson, Burrows, Clark, and Mikey Anderson. I don't have confidence in that. Darcy Kemper would have to come out and do what he did last year and stay healthy, because beyond him, they've got Phoenix Copley and Anton Forsberg. And then, again, you're just relying on Fiala, Kopitar, Byfield, Kempe, and Kuzmenko to be something. And Corey Perry was the big forward acquisition for the Kings. So, yeah, I don't know. Unless they do something else, I don't think there's any hope in hell they repeat with what they had 105 points, I think it was last year. Yeah, 105 points. But I just don't think there's a world that they allow the least amount of goals in the Pacific Division and the second least amount of goals in the Western Conference again. Like, I don't see that being the case.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. All right. This is the offseason. Nothing's going on. We don't have anything really else to talk about. But I do want to run one last thing by you.
Okay.
And then we'll get the hell out of here. Bleacher Report did every NHL. I think they're doing all teams in the major four sports because I think they did it for the NFL and MLB too.
Mm-hmm.
But they are doing Mount Rushmore of players since 2000. For the Anaheim Ducks, they picked the obvious ones. They did Getzlaf, Perry, Solani, and Jaguar.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the right answer?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see who else you could add. Like,
Scott Niedermayer?
But I still think that's like it's for sure Perry, Getzlaf, Solani. So then you're debating that last spot, right? And I'm thinking Niedermayer can be thrown in there, but like it because of what just was accomplished, I think you have to put Jaguar. Like I feel like you just have to. And you obviously can't put Korea because you've only got the last 3 seasons of his Ducks career included in that. So yeah, like it's really like Niedermayer is the only other tangible option to be able to throw in there, and I think I'd still be okay with it, but I feel like I'm more fine leaving Niedermayer off than I would be leaving Jaguar off. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. I just think it's interesting. Like,
I don't think there's anybody else who gets in the conversation though.
Yeah, I mean, look, fucking, there is an argument to be made for Cam Fowler, whose entire career as a Duck is in the post 2000. He set all the records.
But like, we're talking about moments and everything that go into it. Yeah, like I mean, he's
got is it the overtime or the goal, the game tying? But he's got the comeback on Catella goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's got it's crazy that it's not really close for 5th place. I think it's Niedermayer. I think,
there's really not anybody else that you can put in the conversation. Like you can't put Bobby Ryan, you can't put Ryan Kessler, you can't put Gibson, Lindholm, Boschman, like Silfverberg. It would be Fowler maybe, but again, like it would just be because of the longevity and the amount of time he played with the Ducks organization and the records he holds because he played almost 1,000 games with the team. But you just look at what, like if they won a cup and he was a big part of that, then he probably would be there, right? But it's like those 3 guys are for sure locked in. And then you can make an argument between Jaguar and Niedermayer, and you can have Fowler just kind of there. But in the conversation and the debate between Jaguar and Niedermayer, Fowler 100% of the time is the first name that you cross off that list.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
just have to. And then you can make your points. And I think if you include Niedermayer, then it's fair. If you include Jaguar, it's fair. I just look at who do I feel worse about leaving off if I pick the other guy, and I feel worse about not having Jaguar there than not having Niedermayer there. So I just have to put Jaguar there just because of what he did and what he accomplished with this team and what he meant to this team. So
yeah, I don't mind that at all. I really don't mind that. Again, like if nothing else, he gave him and Solani gave us one of my favorite moments in a hockey game ever, which is where they skated around together for their last game. Yeah, I thought that was one of the coolest things I'd seen in a hockey game in a long time.
For sure.
But yeah, it's peak fucking end of July. We just need to write something content, but it was very interesting.
I mean, at least we're a team we can confidently say we have 4 or 5 guys. I'm sure there's some out there.
Can I say something mad crazy?
What?
You can, I think, make an argument for putting Niedermayer on and taking Solani off.
Just because it's the 2000s?
Just because it's since 2000. Now, 10 of his 15 years in Anaheim were post-2000. 2000-2001, starting in the 2000-2001 season. But like,
you're just basically talking about the second stint in Anaheim, then, right? Like versus
yeah,
the first. That's what you have to
the
compare
long
with.
one. But at the same time, the thing I think about with that is like, what Teemu Solani meant to this team. He did that in the 90s. Him coming back mattered because of what he did in the 90s, not because of what he had left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he played at a much higher level and for a lot longer than it looked like he was going to. The lockout came at the perfect time for him. But I just think in general, there is something to be said for he built his legacy with Paul Kariya in the 90s. And the 2000s was about cementing his place as possibly the greatest Duck ever. I mean, I think I still kind of lean Ryan Getzlaf on that one.
Yeah. I don't know, man. For me, there's something to be said about doing what he did in Anaheim, leaving and having decent success, but not like anywhere near in San Jose and Colorado. And then those first 2 seasons back in Anaheim doing what he did, and then obviously the 48 goals and 94 points in the Cup year, like that's just something else, right? Like to just write off all the doubters, come back to Anaheim, have 2 insane seasons and lead them to a Cup. And I'm certainly he wasn't the best player in the playoffs for them. He was great, but he wasn't like he was in the regular season. Just to do what he did in those 2 years, like if he didn't, and if he was a passenger on those teams, then I could probably I could see the argument. But he was such a key part of those 2 seasons coming back and 2 of the most successful years for the Ducks. Like you gotta.
No, I think that's
him.
right. I think that's absolutely right. I was being more of a troll in a sense.
No, you're for sure. I mean, listen, the most impactful years for him in a Ducks jersey are late 90s, and that can't be included in this. So, like, you can certainly make the argument is like 2 seasons. It's 2 seasons of Solani versus a few seasons of Niedermayer, right? Like, in terms of like their key contributions to this team. So that if you have to just delete everything from prior 2000 out of your mind, then it's certainly an argument you could make 100%. Because then the reason I'm even putting Solani in there is because you know what he meant to this team in the past, and I'm talking about the rebound of coming, back to the team after some tough years. So it's tough because you kind of have to take all that out of it, but it's so hard to judge it when you have to include that. But it's certainly, Getzlaf and Perry for sure are locks. And then Teemu, I think, you can make the argument, but he probably still just makes it there off merit because he's Teemu, right? So.
Right. And look, if nothing else, his single greatest moment as a Duck is the goal against the Red Wings, right, in the Cup year. So I think it's an interesting thought point, kind of the way we think about players to be like, a lot of it has to do with the eggplant and not the orange. But what he did in black and gold and orange was still fucking a big deal. Again, right? 31 goals at 39 years old or something in his third to last season.
Yeah, it's
31 goals at age 40. Then he put up 26, then 12, then 9. And when it hit fast. But he was so 31 years, 31 goals as a 40-year-old. He put up 80 points as a 40-year-old.
Yeah,
2 points a game, almost
on a team at that point who weren't that great, right? Like we weren't. I don't think at the time we were that great. I could be completely wrong.
Give me a second. 2010, 2011 Anaheim Ducks capped 47, 30, and 5. Finished second in the Pacific Division.
Okay, so not bad. No, we're good.
This was the end though of the Randy Carlyle era.
Oh, it was the season before that. Yeah. 2009, 2010, 39. 50.
Oh, no. Real quick. Here we go, bro. All right.
Season before and the season after.
That was the year. What do you call it? That Perry won his heart. 50 goals.
Yeah.
Corey Perry, 98 points. Team Solani, 80 points. Ryan Getzlaf, 76 points. Bobby Ryan, 71 points. Lubomir Visnovsky, 68 points. 50 assists. Saku Koivu, Cam Fowler, Jason Blake, Tony Ludman, Brandon McMillan, who only played 60, but Brandon McMillan had 21 points in 60 games and was the 10th leading scorer on the team. Dan Sexton, Joffrey Lupul, Lukas Spiza, Matt Pileski at 22 years old. Oh my God, that was the year that we had Andreas Lilia and Andy Sutton in the lineup.
The first
Maxim
year,
LaPierre and Brad Winchester.
it's the first year. Scott Niedermayer too. That was the first year that we didn't have him.
Yeah. Maxim LaPierre, Brad Winchester, Yarko Rutu, Kyle Chipchura, 19-year-old Kyle Palmieri played 10 games that year.
Check the goalies for that year. 4 goalies played over 10 games.
Hiller, Ellis, Palmier, and Ray Emery.
Look at Ray Emery's number, 7-2 and .926 save percentage.
Yeah, dude, Ray Emery fucking ruled.
Ray Emery, Dan Ellis, and Jonas Hiller had insane years. Curtis McElhenney somehow played 21 games and had an .890 save percentage on that team. Everybody else had insane years.
Cam Fowler took one and scored his only shootout attempt. Bobby Ryan was 2 for 3. Getzy was 1 for 3. Lupul was 1 for 3. Corey Perry was 1 for 6. Solani was 0 for 3. Koivu was 0 for 2. Blake, Visnovsky, and Ludman were all 0 for 1. Tony Ludman took a shootout goal.
I want to know how often Lubomir Visnovsky was drug tested that season, because that is such an outlier at that point in his career for him. It is absolutely insane. 68 points in 81 games. He had 27 and 68 the season after that. Then he never scored more than 20 after that season before he retired. And his best seasons before that were in LA, about 5 or 6 seasons prior to that.
He was fucking good in LA.
Yeah, he was.
His raw point totals didn't hit until his late 20s and his 30s when he puts up, 67, 58,
Yeah, but
40.
like just the outlier of that's one season in Anaheim is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I just.
Well, it's okay. At least we've got we've got Manchester United and the Los Angeles Clippers to keep me warm at night.
Yeah, the Clippers rolling out the retirement team for you to.
Hey man, listen, the LA Clippers have the best team imaginable in 2017 right now. So don't fucking disrespect them like that. This team is unstoppable.
Imagine a team like
10 years
even
ago.
like 6 or 7 years ago of CP3, Kawhi, Harden, and Beal.
Bro, right? Like insane.
Like it's
that team in 2020 is insane.
They have Lopez too now. Even Lopez,
Brook Lopez.
Yeah, those guys, Brook Lopez, and I guess Kawhi at the 4, and Beal at the 3, with Paul and Harden as the 1-2. That's pretty wild.
I can't wait to see how it goes.
There's just a lot of names.
CP is going to come off the bench.
Ben Simmons, Zubac,
Bogdanovic. Is Ben Simmons still on the team?
He's listed as on the roster right now. I don't know.
Zubac is. I mean, fuck, dude. The Clippers still have Chris Dunn.
It just says he last played for the Clippers, so maybe Ben Simmons is not on the team. But
the Clippers still have Chris Dunn of the Chicago Bulls.
It's just a lot of guys, man. There's a lot of guys.
It's just a bunch of dudes, bro.
That is
all right.
Hilarious starting 4 at this in 2025 for sure. Box office just to be, what would be great is just see like what a story, what a documentary to see these 4 guys like turn back the clock and just take
Yeah.
it.
Could you imagine if those 4 fucking guys were all like, actually, we're all going to play all 82 games this year?
Yeah. Meanwhile, Men's Health did a whole expose on Luka Doncic getting in shape, so he's going to come out and average like 40 this year.
We'll see. We'll
Lakers,
see.
So.
We'll see how long he stays in shape.
I love that becomes a story in the NBA.
Is Luka Doncic too fat? Well,
very extremely high paid athlete is in shape and in the off season, and that is our main cover story of the off season for this magazine. Great, love it.
That rules. Oh man. All right, man. I got nothing left to say about this so far. I don't know.
Yeah, I no. That's other than like I don't know when we're gonna be back. We were supposed to be back sooner than this, but the only 2 things left, or the only thing left, is Mason McTavish, and the only other potential thing we'll say it every time is Jason Robinson. So unless one of those 2 things get resolved, then we'll come. But if it's Jason Robinson going somewhere else, I don't think that's going to warrant us doing a show anytime soon. So I would imagine even if Mason McTavish gets signed tomorrow, we're probably off for a while until season preview. I would imagine is our next show. I can't
probably.
I can't imagine. So probably. Maybe we aim to do something by the end of the summer, so end of August, just if anything happens, would be the first time we're back. If not, then we're looking September, October at that point, leading up to the season. So we'll have to dive back into our old season preview, see how wrong we were, and update everybody on how wrong we were on that show, and then make some more bad predictions for this year and see how that goes.
Time-honored tradition, my friend. Time-honored tradition.
Yep, it's got to be done. All right. Well, that wraps it up for this one, guys. Yeah. Appreciate you guys joining us and listen to us ramble. And we'll be back as soon as we can.
All right. Bye, everybody.